Okay, the meeting may begin.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mishi-Saugig territory and in the traditional territory of the Mishi-Saugig and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Good evening and welcome to the County of Haliburton's Land Division Committee. My name is Liz Danielson and I'll be your chairperson for tonight's meeting. I'd like to introduce you to the other members of the committee. Tammy McKelvey, Councillor at Large for Minden Hills. Pat Kennedy, Public Member for Dysart et al. And Bob Snyder, Public Member representing Highlands East. We're joined by our official Land Division Secretary, Alana Lacey, and our planner, Adam Kozlowski. This meeting is held through remote electronic participation in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. The purpose of the hearing is to give each applicant or their authorized agent the opportunity to discuss their application with the committee and to respond to written submissions which may have been received. It's also an opportunity for committee members to broaden their understanding of each application by asking questions. Members of the public who are participating virtually may also make oral submissions to the committee, whether in support or opposition of an application. We hear the applications in the same order as they were received in our office. Our secretary treasurer or planner will introduce each application and our planners will provide planning briefs. The participants who have registered to address the committee will be admitted virtually to speak with the committee, and each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak to the committee. We'll now proceed with the agenda for the evening. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented? Member Kennedy and McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the May 8, 2023 Land Division Committee agenda be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of April 17th? Member Snyder and Member Kennedy.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the Land Division Committee meeting held April 17th, 2023 be approved as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. So we'll move into the applications that we received this evening. The first being file number 5222, Turner, for a new residential lot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, committee. The subject lands are at 1889 Sawyers Lake Road, which is in Minden Hills. And the property is just north of Sawyer Lake. It's a rural property that has a river bisecting it. The application would sever a new 2.5 acre lot with 460 feet of frontage on Sawyers Lake Road. And the retained lot would have 54.5 acres with 1,920 feet of frontage on Sawyers Lake Road. And I will just share screen very quickly with committee. Okay, so here's the subject lands. Everything in red is the retained, and the proposed new lot is in this green dashed line here. In support of the application, a scoped environmental impact study was submitted, and this study looked at the severed lot and it took inventory of natural features and functions, and basically it recommends a 30-meter setback to the top of bank of the creek here in the wetlands. And with that 30-meter setback, the building envelope is basically this open field area here, which is approximately 32,000 square feet. So there's ample room here to construct a dwelling and septic system that is outside of that 30-meter creek buffer. One email of support was received from Sheila Richardson, and no other correspondence was received. Stop sharing here. So the Proposal was endorsed by Minden Hills Council. Staff here at the county have no objection. We recommend approval of the application, subject to the conditions that are listed in the report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do the committee members have any questions of our planner? Member Kennedy.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I'm more curious than anything, the odd shape of this severed lot. It just seems like it's a chunk out of the middle, and no objection to it. It's just a curious kind of way of splitting up a parcel of land. And the second question is, that you state that there's an existing entrance and a dwelling. Is that across the road? Trying to look at the aerial photo you submitted. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, to Member Kennedy. Yes, there's a dwelling. I'll share screen again quickly. The existing dwelling on the retained lot is, oh, sorry. It's right here. You can see that on the air photo. So there's an entrance here off Sawyers, and the house is up here.
Thank you.
I see that we have both the consultant and the owner who are in the audience or wholly in the wings. Do either one of them wish to speak to the committee about the application?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't see anybody for this application in the wings. I did just receive an email literally at 7:05 from Catherine Irwin, and Catherine is the author of the EIS, and she just let us know that she'll be attending, but I think we might have dealt with this application by the time she logs in, if that's okay.
Would there be any questions from the committee with respect to the EIS? Okay, could I have then a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval to this application? A move by Member McKelvey, seconded by Member Snyder.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H052-22 Turner, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H052-22 Turner, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
You want to take a recorded vote?
Yes, Member McKelvey.
All right, yes.
Thank you. Member Snyder.
Yay.
Thank you. Member Kennedy.
Yay.
Thank you. And Chair Danielson.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's carried. All right, the next application is by Jin and Tang for a new shoreline lot in Algonquin Highlands. I believe this is on Quagum Lake.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll share screen and walk committee very briefly through the app. So as the chair indicated, this property is on Kawagama Lake, and it's being treated as a water access lot because while I could drive to it, the property does not have right of way at this time. I believe the applicant might be pursuing that, but for the time being, we're considering this water access. The application would seek to sever a new 2-acre waterfront lot with 220 feet of shoreline. And the retained lot would also be 2 acres with 295 feet of shoreline frontage. An EIS was prepared by Riverstone Environmental that examined the property, both the severed and retained, for suitable building envelopes that will maintain features and functions. And from the EIS, the severed lot has approximately 21,000 square feet of building envelope. And the retained lot has just under 47,000 square feet of building envelope. So both properties have adequate room for buildings and a septic system on each property. And they also have enhanced shoreline setbacks. From the EIS, the building envelopes are actually quite far back from the water, 50 meters and greater. No correspondence was received on this application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Algonquin Highlands did endorse this application, and staff recommend approval subject to the conditions in the report. And I believe Mr. Leo Jin is here in the audience, as well as representative from Riverstone Environmental. Thank you.
The one question that I would have is that if I understand, this point has been subdivided before and gone through a consent process. Are there any limitations on how many times this can be subdivided over and over again?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, this property at one time, so it had 2 severed lots and 1 retained lot. So the county official plan allows 3 new lots plus 1 retained. So the application before committee tonight is basically, this is it. This is the last lot that's permitted because the properties had 2 previous severances.
Okay. The only other question that I would have would be for Mr. Jin, but I will leave it to the committee to see if they have any initial questions of Adam. Member Snyder?
Thank you. So if we're treating this as a water access lot, and I know that there's a condition that they have to have parking and docking somewhere else. My question relates to the lots themselves. The shoreline has been indicated that it's fish habitat 2, type 2. Any restrictions on putting docks in type 2 fish habitat?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's a good question for zoning for Algonquin Highlands, but from my experience, type 2 fish habitat, and Craig Mann might be able to explain this better, but type 2 fish habitat is the less critical. Type 1 is basically the habitat that we don't want to touch. Some municipalities will allow a floating dock, for example, in type 1. I know where I used to work, floating dock only, no boathouse, no other shoreline structures. And I believe, as you indicated, these the shoreline of both of these is type 2, so being the less sensitive.
So we're not aware of any.
Yeah, the Algonquin Highlands zoning bylaw. Off the top, I don't know what the restrictions are for docks in that fish habitat. I don't know if this shoreline has any type of EP zoning on it.
And then my second question is the EIS is quite descriptive in terms of the conditions that should be placed upon the property in terms of construction and removal of certain types of debris. And it says there's a clause that says it'll be enforced in the severance agreement or included in the severance agreement. Who enforces the severance agreement?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the severance agreement will be entered into with the local municipality. And so basically that agreement, that consent agreement is going to be the tool that implements the Riverstone recommendations. So as the property is developed, that would be on the local planning and building department to ensure that those clauses are being complied with.
So it will become part of the building department's responsibility then?
Yes, because when the building permit comes in, they'll have a site plan attached to it, and the site plan will be reviewed against that Riverstone report to ensure that it complies.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Algonquin Highlands does have regulations about docks and size and length of docks that are allowed, but I don't think that they delve into the environmental aspect of it and restrict them for that reason. But we do have a requirement. I think it's one of the conditions of the application that whoever is building there must prove that they have parking and access for vehicles on the lake somewhere. That's the owner's responsibility. Member Kennedy?
Just to follow up to that, Madam Chair, for me, the adequate docking and parking facilities, is that usually on private land, and is it attached to the actual lot? description then on the waterfront, on the
Well,
water
the-
access rather?
Because it's a water access only property, it would have to be somewhere else on the lake that has road access.
Yes,
But
but
that's
is
up
it,
to the individual to make arrangements with someone, with private property or, a private or a business
Okay.
on the lake where they can park their vehicle or park their boats or, whatever's needed.
so in the
Yeah.
event of a sale, that wouldn't transfer to the new owner probably unless there was an agreement.
Well,
Sorry,
that's-
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just gonna say when that consent agreement will be registered on the land, as you said, and so it goes with the land regardless of who owns it. So if there's two situations where water shoreline access is granted, it can either be from a marina, which Mr. Jin actually, he did submit a letter from the previous two consents that there was parking and docking at, I forget the name of the marina up there. The other one is if you have a private landowner who grants you access, and if committee remembers back last year, we did one on Kinesis, I believe, where it was an island property and they had right of way over a shoreline lot to get out to that or to park.
The only issue periodically is that the property will change hands. The new owner doesn't understand that that's a requirement, and the next thing you know, they're coming to the municipality saying, "Are you going to provide us with parking?" And we're really running into some problems with that. Mr. Jin, would you like to provide any information to the committee to support your application?
Sure. Good evening, Madam Chair and all the committee members. And I think just want to add one more thing. For the boat parking, actually, I obtained the writing from Bruce, who is owner of Dry House, which is, I think, one of the biggest arena on this lake. So he fully confirmed there is a parking spot available. And actually, I believe the previous owner, they also have a boat parking there. So I would say there isn't concern about this water access availability for this property. I think that's pretty much. And also septic, we also have a right the septic contractor to confirm all the capacity and feasibility about the septic construction for these two lots. I think it's also available in, I guess, in one of the photos. So I think these two things I just want to add to my application.
Any other questions for Mr. Jin? I might add, and I confess it really isn't in relationship to the two lots that are in question right now. But Mr. Jin, do you own the whole point? Like, do you still own the?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Madam Chair, actually, I obtained this property from the previous owner because I believe he does not have the capacity of handling all these three property. And then I just took the last piece, and then, because naturally there is a pretty long shoreline on both sides of the property. So naturally, we just plan to split it into half from the middle. So that's the whole situation about this property.
Okay. The reason I asked is that there has been a traditional snowmobile crossing
Correct.
somewhere on the point, and I know that has been a bit of a bone of contention, that there's a gentleman who has been doing quite a bit of inquiring and asking some questions about that, but it
Right.
really is not in relation to these two lots. So
Correct. You're absolutely right. I think that's great knowledge. Actually, that snowmobile trail is, if we are calling that the point lot, which is at the west side of this whole peninsula.
right.
And also, if I'm correct, because naturally, that's the only piece of this whole property can have the snowmobile going through, because going to our side, the east side, actually on the north side of the property is sort of like a cliff. It's
Okay.
not
Well, we'll leave that to the
gonna be
owners of the point.
possible for people to access. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Jin? Okay, hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to grant provisional approval for this application? Member Kennedy and Member McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton receive the report related to application for consent H00123 Jin Tang, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H00123 Jin Tang, subject to the conditions of approval as described in the staff report. Member McKelvey,
Yay.
Member Snyder,
Yay.
Member Kennedy,
Yay.
Chair Danielson.
Yay. That's approved. Thank you, Mr. Jin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application is from Toole and Lee for a new rural residential lot in Algonquin Highlands.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll share screen. Okay, can everybody see the sketch clearly?
Yep.
Okay. So the subject property is just south of Camp Dorset, which is it's basically between Deer Lake to the west and Kawagama Lake further upstream to the east. And this application, it was modified. It originally came in with the retained lands and the severed lands flipped. And that configuration would create some issues with the Planning Act and being able to register and merge things. So I had a discussion with Marie Poirier, and Marie Poirier has modified the app now so that the severed lands are basically south of the creek and the retained lands are on the north side. And just looking at this sketch, fast forwarding, the intention here is to consolidate. This is a shoreline lot over here, and it has a dwelling on it. And the applicants have made separate proposal to purchase this unopened road allowance. And what will happen is once the landowners own this piece, the road allowance, and then the retained lands, the idea is that they will apply to consolidate and merge all three of these parcels. And it already has a house on it. So there won't be any new development on the retained lot. So this will all be basically one shoreline lot on Deer Lake that's already developed. So the application, that aside, the severed lot on the south side of the creek has an area of 8.6 acres, and it's got 1,440 feet of frontage on Deer Narrows Drive, which is right here. The retained lot on the north side of the creek, which will be merged, has an area of 7 acres, and it's got 246 feet of frontage on Deer Narrows Drive over here. However, the main access to the dwelling will be off of Camp Dorset Road, which basically comes along the north side here. So just going back to the north part, once this is merged, it'll have an area of just under 14 acres, and it's going to have 482 feet of frontage on Deer Lake. A scope EIS was submitted in support of the severed lot, just because of the creek and the various setbacks that are required. And the EIS identified a building envelope on the severed lot of 6.5 acres. So plenty of room there for a building and septic that's well outside of any environmental feature setback. No correspondence was received as a result of the circulation. Algonquin Highlands has endorsed the application, and planning staff recommend approval subject to the conditions. And I believe Ernest Young from Marie Poirier Planning is here tonight to speak to this application, and I would be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Adam at this point? Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. Adam, is it a condition of the severance that the retained land is merged? Or are we just hoping that's what happens?
Through you, Madam Chair, there is a condition there that requires the shoreline lot on Deer Lake, the concession road allowance, and the retained land all to merge. If that doesn't occur, the severance of the lands on the south side of the river will not happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Adam? Mr. Young, is there additional information that you'd like to provide to support the application?
I think Adam pretty much gave a pretty good explanation and overview of the project. We concur with staff explanation and the condition of approval that has been put forward. It's our opinion that the proposal represent good planning, and we will be happy to answer any question you may have.
Do members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Young? Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, and it's probably not our bailiwick here to talk about it, but I really dislike closing road allowances that go to water. And you're saying that this is not navigable, but in your report you state that it is intermittent. And that is covered under the Navigable Waters Act. It does include intermittent streams. So is there enough room there to run it, to put a canoe up and down when there is water there? And how far away is this other landing? Not very good information on that. But I believe that's a township. It has nothing to do with us at Land Division, but just a personal thing.
Okay. So for water access, and I believe because the parcel is accessible through Camp Dorset Road, so we didn't really think much about water access. And for navigability of the water course, we have had a discussion with Adam before, considering about the natural severance feasibility of the property. So because to the west of the water course, there is a beaver dam that blocks the waterway. So it's the water course don't really provide direct access into Deer Lake. And to the east of the water course, there is a culvert that blocks the waterway as well. So it's not really a navigable water course.
Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, through you, Madam Chair, just to committee, just to add a little bit to Ernest's information. So when I went out and did the posting, the owner came out and we actually walked up the creek a little bit. And yeah, he indicated that in midsummer, that creek, you'd be pretty hard pressed to get any type of boat up there. There was also a lot of downed trees. There's some erosion of the shoreline in there. And I think in the site photo, there's one picture and there's quite a few trees that have fallen into that creek. So the water level changes throughout the year. And that's the reason why we didn't go with the natural severance approach.
Thank you for that, because the creek does look fairly wide in the one picture. So that was one of the reasons for my question. Thank you.
So this approval of this application doesn't in any way hamper access for Camp Dorset.
Oh, sorry, can you say that again?
I just want to make sure that the closure, the future closure of the right of way will not create any challenges for Camp Dorset in the future.
Oh, there shouldn't be any.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, Madam Chair. So when you say about or the comment about challenges for Camp Dorset, I assume you're relating to road access.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that sketch I showed you, Camp Dorset Road, it's basically on the north side of the retained land, and it goes all the way out to
Deer Lake.
Yeah, it goes out to the county road. So when I drove along the north part of the property, the driveway that goes into the Deer Lake property on the left, it was very clearly marked, and then the road turns right and goes into the camp. So this application won't do anything for hindering road access.
Okay. Any other questions for either Adam or Mr. Young? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to grant provisional approval of the application? Members Snyder and McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H00223 Lee, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H00223 Lee, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member McKelvey,
Yay.
Member Snyder,
Okay.
Member Kennedy,
Yay.
Chair Danielson.
Yay,
Thank you.
that's approved. Thank you. The next application is by Grola, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, for two lot additions in Minden Hills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the subject lands are on the south shore of Kawaga. Oh boy, I think you know the lake I'm talking. Kashaga-Wigamog. It's been a long day in the township of Minden Hills. And I'll just share a sketch with committee. So it's on Fernwood Trail, which is a private road. And what the application will do is take the vacant middle lot here, and it's going to equally divide it between 1119 Fernwood and 1101 Fernwood. So just numerically, what will happen here is 1101 will be increased in size from 0.77 acres to 1.18 acres. And the frontage will increase from 121 feet to 181 feet. The north lot, 1119, will increase in size from 0.71 acres to 1.12 acres. And the frontage will increase from 132 feet to 192 feet. And the middle lot will basically cease to exist. So we're looking at one less development lot on Kashaga-Wigamog. No correspondence was received, and Minden Hills Council has endorsed the application. County planning staff recommend approval subject to the conditions in the staff report. And I believe Mary Grola is here if there's any questions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Looks pretty straightforward. Mary, is there anything that you'd like to add to Adam's report? Ms. Grola, did you wish to speak to the report at all?
Mute.
You're still on mute.
Can
There
you
you
hear
go.
me now?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Sorry, not
That's
that.
all right.
Okay. I have nothing really to add. If I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, then could I have a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval for the application? Members McKelvey and Kennedy?
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H00423 Grola, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H00423 Grola, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member McKelvey,
Yay.
Member Snyder,
Yay.
Member Kennedy,
Yay.
Chair Danielson.
Yay. That's carried.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, our final application is by Grills for a new rural residential lot on Buckslide Road in Algonquin Highlands.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the subject application, as indicated, is 1920 Buckslide Road in Algonquin Highlands. And the application is to sever one new rural residential lot. And I'll just bring up the sketch here. So the new lot would have an area of 5 acres with 295 feet of frontage on Buckslide Road. The retained lot would have an area of 17.5 acres with 466 feet of frontage on Buckslide. The retained lot, there is a dwelling and garage on it, and the severed lot would be vacant. No correspondence was received on this application. A deer wintering study was provided as the property is within what's known as the Stratum 2. And this was prepared by Riverstone, and basically the Riverstone report indicates that it's not used by deer during the winter, so it's really not functioning as deer habitat, and that future development of the severed lot would be appropriate, and it won't hurt or harm any features or functions. And one of the conditions, similar to the other properties, would be that there's a consent agreement registered on the severed lot to implement the recommendations of Riverstone's report, which is basically to maintain the tree cover that's in there, mainly the hemlock. So Algonquin Highlands Council has endorsed the application. County staff have no concerns, recommend approval, subject to the conditions. And I believe James and Donna Grills are here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I know that one of the, I believe that this lot is possibly adjacent to some properties we looked at recently over the last couple of months. And we had asked for a, well, similar to one of the recommendations that we had asked that a 30-meter buffer remain in the front to protect the, I believe that there's wetlands across the road from there. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm confusing this with another property, but is that the case?
Oh, yes, we're referring to, they were a couple of lots severed for, I think it was BK Carpentry. That's further north. On this property across the road, it's basically bush.
Okay.
There's no features identified there. And Craig Mann from Riverstone is also here in attendance if there's any specific questions.
Do committee members have any questions of Adam or of Mr. Mann? Craig, is there anything that you wish to add to the application information?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, no, I'm just here to answer any questions you may have about the deer wintering study.
Okay. Well, hearing no questions, could I have a mover and a seconder then to grant provisional approval for the application? Members Snyder and Kennedy.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H00523 grills, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H00523 grills, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member McKelvey?
Yay.
Member Snyder?
Yay.
Member Kennedy?
Yay.
Chair Danielson?
Yay. That's approved. So the unless members have something they wish to bring up under other business, I did just want to let the committee members know that we did receive a number of applications to join the Land Division, and they will be reviewed at our committee of the whole meeting on Wednesday. So I'm hoping that for our next meeting, we'll have a new member. And there were definitely several people who have some experience in that regard. So that's good to know, you know, that bringing a little bit more experience. Not that we don't have experience right here, but as opposed to bringing in a raw new member that's got a large learning curve. So that's that. We're looking forward to that. Anything that committee members want to raise? Bob?
Madam Chair, the fourth application tonight eliminated a lot on shoreline. I know the townships probably don't like to see the loss of potential tax revenue. But is there some way that the townships could incentivize people to do this more often?
Well, you know what, I'm not sure. You know, there's been so much discussion going on about housing, the need for housing and how we're going to accommodate that. And that kind of goes against the grain of keeping more properties open for development. But I believe that county council and I'm certain all of the lower tier municipalities will be having discussions about housing and how we might move forward with the pros and cons of, you know, changes to our zoning bylaws and our official plans going forward.
Okay, thank you. Food for thought.
Thank you for that. Any comment that anyone else wants to make on that?
I guess,
Go ahead, Adam.
nope, just for the committee's update. So we've pretty much closed the file on 2022. I think there's one application left outstanding, but otherwise we cleared over 60 files for 2022. And for next month, we're going to have 3 or 4, maybe 5. So we are plugging along. 2022 was a very busy year, and I have a lot of pre-consultations in various stages. So I think we're going to have another busy year this year.
Not to mention, are we now alone?
Oh, no, we're still public. Yep.
I just I just wanted to mention the fact that you're also going to be busy likely with discussions and permitting for anything that's on the shore road allowances in the 3 municipalities, that will be adding to your workload considerably. And see if
Mr. Stone and I spent the entire morning this morning going up to Oxtongue Lake to meet with a landowner who wanted to do some work. I shouldn't say we as a department, we've got 2 applications that may lead to shoreline permits. We've got a few complaints already. It's like in the last week, I've had to open 3 files for shoreline, and it's not slowing down. I think what's going to happen is Monday mornings are going to be busy because all the stuff that happens on the weekends is going to get reported. So Steve and I will be met with phone calls and emails Monday mornings all summer with various complaints and inquiries.
We'll have to keep an eye on the amount of work that's adding to your load, your existing load, which is already substantial. So but I am glad to hear that people are inquiring about permits and that you're getting concerns being raised. That's good.
Yep. Yeah, we've had great feedback. The folks that we met with this morning were very happy, and we worked with them to steer their project towards exemption rather than needing a permit to begin with. And so that's kind of that's our main focus, is to try to get folks into that exemption area where they're, doing minimal work on the water's edge.
Well, and that was part of our goal, that, let's keep it as simple as we possibly can, but make sure that those who need to do substantial work do it properly and get a permit.
Yep.
See how it goes. Any other questions or comments? Our next meeting is on June the 12th. And could I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Members Kennedy and McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the May 8th, 2023 Land Division Committee meeting be hereby adjourned at 7:44 p.m.
All in favor? Thanks very much.
Night all.
Thanks, Adam and Alana.